Right. Well, everybody, we are extending a giant warm welcome to all of you here. Thank you for attending and joining Dean and I today for our webinar on problem statements and solution speak. So I don't know a product manager out there that hasn't dealt with solution speak before. So Dean and I cannot wait to share some of the things that we've put together, and hear from all of you as we go along. So we got a lot to look forward to. So I'm Ryan Cantwell. Like I said in the chat, I am based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm a consultant and trainer here at Productside. Dean, if you want to introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, I'm also a principal consultant and trainer at Productside for the past 2.5 years, living in Apex, but absolutely a Ravens fan.
All right. So now, just a little bit about Productside. If you are unfamiliar with us, we were formerly known as the 280 Group, but now we are Productside. And when you join us on the Productside, we are on your side. We are an outcome-driven product partner. And what that means is we are all about transformation, delivering results, making sure we give you the right tools, the right skills, and the right knowledge in order to make product an impactful department in your organization. So we bring our thought leadership into the world, as well as our lots of experiences, and other tools and techniques that we've picked up along the way. So lots of good stuff that comes from us at Productside. So as we go along and we look at the journey ahead for this particular webinar, the first question we always get asked is this going to be recorded? And I can assure you all that yes, it is being recorded, and we will make it available to you later. So everyone that's in attendance today, you will receive an email with a link to the recording after the webinar has ended. So be on the lookout for that. So know that we'll share that with you. So we do have our team supporting us today, and we would love for you to engage with us throughout the webinar. So please feel free to use the chat function. We've already gotten used to that. And the Q&A function. We have that available to us as well here. So please leverage both. There are good ways to kind of interact with Dean and I as we go along. All right. And it goes without saying, we would love to have you as part of our product community. So please do connect with Productside on LinkedIn. You can pick up your phone, scan the QR code that you see here on the screen, and that is where you get to both learn from us. We have lots and lots of free resources we're putting into the world, whether it's a blog post, a webinar like this one, a podcast, or other thought leadership pieces. We can't wait to share those with you. We would love for you to engage with your peers in our network as well, so you can discuss different product management topics and techniques and just become better product people as a result. And that networking can mean a lot. So you get to meet new and cool product people along the way. So please do connect with us. We'd love to have you as part of the community. All right. So Dean, I'm going to turn it over to you to take it away. Let us know what the journey looks like ahead.
Alrighty, so we're going to talk about the problem with solutions first. Okay, so George C had already asked a good question. Hey, what are you against here? So we're going to talk about the problem with solutions first, and we're going to then talk about starting down the problem path. We're going to explore the problem jungle, as Ryan likes to call it. And then we're going to talk about, once we've identified the problem, getting to that solution, get you some key takeaways, provide some time for Q&A, although we like your questions anytime, and we'll be done for the day.
All right. Thank you, Dean. And I just wanted to quickly just address, Raphael, you asked a question. The Zoom screen appears blank. Can somebody confirm in chat quickly that it can be seen? I want to make sure that everything's okay before Dean and I continue. Okay, got it. We are all good. So Dean, off we go.
All righty. So I think, let's talk about the problem with solutions first. I think, Ryan, don't we have a little Quizlet coming up?
We have a
Yes,
poll.
we
So let's go ahead
we
and
have.
launch our first poll of the session. So you
Right.
should see that popping up on your screens, everybody, and please tell us what you think. How often do your stakeholders tell you what to do without sharing why they want to do it?
all the time, often. Can't believe it. Nobody said pick never, you know? I
But yeah,
wonder
never.
what's the deal
Yeah.
with that, right?
Yeah, we got Mohammed in chat saying almost always, of
Right,
course.
right. Yeah. You need to ask. I mean, possibly it should have been degrees. We should have maybe done a varying degrees of all the time, right?
That's right. Yeah, varying degrees of all the time. I like that.
All the time when I'm eating lunch, all the time when I'm trying to get out on Friday, all the time, making varying degrees of all the time there.
All right, it
All
looks like
right.
responses have slowed down, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So let's take a
Cool.
look at what we have here. We've got a clear winner in this horse race,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
often, Dean. I get requests without much background most of the time. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes they share the reasoning, but it's hit or miss, which means, after, 3 months later, when we push something out the door, if it's a miss, guess who's holding the bag? Right. So
That's
yeah,
right.
and it's not going to be the person requesting that there. So we'll keep that in mind there. Oh, yeah, maybe to the right screen already. So we're there. I think maybe we're ready to move on with the
We
next.
are. So we stopped sharing the poll. So, Dean, if it's okay, I've got a little story to tell.
Okay.
All right. So I want to just share with all of you that there I was, the unsuspecting product manager, sat at my desk and I get a call, like a message, and it was a salesperson saying, "Oh, Ryan, I really would love for you to talk to this client. They're available right now. Could you jump on with us?" I'm never going to turn down an opportunity to get to talk to a client. There's no problem
Right.
with that at all.
Right.
So as I'm having this conversation, it becomes clear to me almost immediately that the client wanted to tell me about their awesome feature idea for my product.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh no. So you basically got suckered in, is what you're
I
telling
got
me.
suckered in. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. So as I sat, my wheels are spinning, and I'm trying to think, like, how do I respond to this? Like, am I just polite? Because I know, like, I've got other priorities. How do I go about addressing this request? And in my mind, I'm starting to visualize two paths for myself, Dean.
Right.
The path on the left, I'm gonna call it the
Yeah.
easy path. It's the
So
friendly one.
so yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. And that is just where I give them what they want. It's very
Okay.
clear. It feels safe. And oh, okay, if I just give you what you want, customer will be happy, I can move on.
So
But
share your screen. I think you got a visual for this. Why don't you share your screen on the visual? I think
oh,
I think yeah, it got dropped. It got dropped when you put the poll there. So yeah, we've got these wonderful visuals for the path on the left.
hold on. Well, I don't know why sharing is acting up. All right, let me do this again, Dean.
Okay, not a problem. Otherwise, I can share my
How about
screen.
now?
Let me see. Give me a second here. Yes, I see the paths. I see the path on the left.
There we go. All right. My apologies, everybody. So yes, so I've got my path on the left, the easy path, the solution path. I can just give them what they want. But I know there are traps that might be hidden under those little paver blocks. But the other side, it's a dense jungle. That jungle is uncertain. It requires exploration. I have to have more conversations with this customer, but I know that is where true insights lie. It's the harder path, but there's treasure inside that jungle, Dean.
Right.
So I want everyone here to be thinking about times that sound like mine when you faced two paths like this and the impact those choices make. What do you think, Dean?
I think you're fine. I agree with you because I especially love your wine. I mean, we're going to talk about it in a second, but as soon as that, hey, I want to talk to you a minute here, or hey, I was reading an article, or hey, I was
Yeah.
on, look at, we hear the wind up, and if you've done it long enough, you're like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I hear my mother call. I mean, I hear my boss calling, for a one-on-one, you know, um,
Exactly.
you
So let's
know,
let's talk about these paths, Dan. Tell me what you think.
yeah,
When we're looking at facing these paths as product people,
right.
how should we think about it?
So here's my problem with solution path. And this gets down to some, as you know, some data that's been collected by the people like, what do you call it? Ronnie Kohavi has captured this in his book on discovery. Google has reported on this. Amazon has reported on this. They've all done these deep studies. And basically, when you start out solution first or down the path of what I call solutionism, that 80% of the time you deliver little or no impact. In fact, within that 80%, the bottom 20% can actually be very damaging to either yourself or the customer. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, yeah, I could put the solution out there. Oh, I remember my first day at Dude Solutions. It was in there the first day in the what do you call it, what do you call it, the dining area there, and I had, sure enough, one of the AEs corner me saying, "Hey, I need to get this button on the screen to make the sale." I was like,
Hmm.
"Well, tell me about the care and feeding of this button once we get it on the screen."
Right.
And you just heard the crickets. Because I'm like, it's like, wait a minute. You're asking me to put this here. I'm making the sale. I said, but I mean, was it just sort of, are we doing a painted door experiment? Which is where of course they didn't do any sort of experimentation like that. So of course that wasn't the answer. So again, they were thinking, well, if we put the button out here, and then I'm like, now we got to do care and feeding. Now we got to do all the maintenance on it there. Will it actually solve the problem? What was the customer trying to get with that button? So again, we are confronted by it in every way every day with that. So I would rather go take the problem path, because at the end of the day, it's I got two outcomes here. Either I create I what do you call it, stay gainfully employed, and am paid and promoted by creating great outcomes for my customers, or I just sort of cling into that feature factory type of mode. Say, look, whatever they ask, I'm just going to deliver it here and just hold on as long as I can until people realize I'm just pushing, stuff out the door and using hope as a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
No, hope
So,
is not a strategy.
yeah, Dean, I've got a little story or example that I can share about this one too,
Please
where
do.
most of us in the world are Instagram users, and we all remember Instagram's Reels. They built those things in response to TikTok's popularity. And while there was engagement coming from that feature, it initially lacked any differentiation because Instagram hadn't fully explored why TikTok and their platform resonated so deeply with users.
Right.
And by then going back and doing that deeper exploration into preferences, Instagram was later able to add features like creator tools
Mhm.
and adapting Reels to meet those unique community needs. And
Right.
all of a sudden,
Which is
it worked.
interesting when you think of their DNA. I mean, they started out the
Mhm.
product called bourbon. Well, and it wasn't even about the photos until they realized, like, oh wait, it's about the photos and the filter tools that came along with it. So, once they got back to their like, DNA, like, oh wait a minute, we need to understand what's in it for them. That's
Mhm.
so different, so delightful, so moves the needle for them so much that they'll buy into our solution, versus someone else.
Yep,
Which is what you get with the problem path. And if you get the solution path, you may get lucky, but the statistics, they're not in your favor.
exactly. All right, so let's talk about we've identified solutions, speak, and why the solutions path is important. Let's talk about the problem path, Dean.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide here, okay? Because I think this is so. First, I want to talk about listening for solutions. So since we are all confined, one of the things I tell people, it's like, first thing you have to do as a product manager, what do I have to do? Do I need to learn how to do Jira? Do I need to learn how to be technical? I said, no, you need to know a solution when it walks in the door. Yeah, that's step one. I haven't given you step two. So, Ryan, let me give you a few of these and tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, the pain level of each of these.
Ooh.
And by the way, people in the audience, I'm going to be giving Ryan examples of solution speak. And if you've heard them or if you've got some of your own, please put them in the comments so we can all commiserate on them together.
That's right.
So here's the one at the top of the list.
Okay.
It's just a little feature.
Oh, it's easy. You can do it. It's just a little
You're
feature. I'm going to rate that one a 6.
Yeah, okay, a 6, and you heard, and what was sort of the frequency you heard that?
Oh man, the frequency that I hear something like that, it was pretty frequent. I'm going to say like on a scale of 10 at like 8 out of 10.
All right, so we got the pain and we got the frequency. All right, while you're in there, why don't you?
Oh, that was my favorite one. While you're in there. So the pain of that one is something like an 8 because we're ignoring other priorities and things like that. And the frequency was a little less. I'm going to say the frequency of that was maybe a 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Why can't we just do what our competitor does? Why don't we just do why can't we just do X, Y, or Z? So, pain and frequency.
Yeah, pain and frequency. Why can't we just? All right, so pain of that one, I'm gonna say that one is an 8. That one's pretty painful. And
Right.
the frequency was up there too. It's like a 7.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So then I got its cousin, its sibling question here.
Okay.
Why don't we just use generative AI to get X done?
Why don't we just so
What? And before that, before generative AI, why don't we use NFT? Why don't we use blockchain? Why don't we
what?
use Web 3.0? Why don't
Right.
all these things? What? So why? I was reading an article. Why don't we just use?
Fill in the blank. Yeah, the latest technology. So I'm gonna say that one on a pain scale is probably like middle of the road. I'm gonna call that one a 5, but frequency probably middle of the road too. I'm gonna give it a 5 and a
Okay,
5. Yep.
cool enough. Cool enough. All right. So here's one that I was confronted with, especially when I was head of product couple places, and I would get these from what I would call our what do you call it? The customers who gave us our biggest customers. In other words, these are the ones on which our ARR was crucially dependent on,
Yep.
our revenue. I'm sure your other customers would like this feature.
I'm sure your other customers would
Yeah,
like
so
this
they're trying to
feature.
pitch you a feature and like, I'm sure your other customers would like this too. Not
Ah.
understanding that they're a large enterprise, not understanding that they're bigger than most of our other clients here. They're probably a little more complex. And now they're
Mhm.
asking us to, so you ever run into that one?
I have run into that one before. I'm gonna call that one a 7 on the pain scale because now they're trying to like back you into the corner of listen to my solution request. And on the frequency scale, that one I would rate a little lower. I'm gonna call that one a
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. You don't get this frequently, but when you get it, oh
Yeah,
boy, you got to manage it. Okay.
right.
Can you add this solution to your backlog? Not your
Can
backlog, excuse me. Can you add the solution to your roadmap? That's what I wanted.
Oh, can you add this solution to your roadmap? Man, I'm gonna call that one a 10. That was like every meeting I would go to.
Right.
Everybody's so
Right.
both frequency and pain. It was like, don't blow up my roadmap. We
Yeah, I mean
agreed.
it's supposed to be strategic, dude, right?
Right.
Okay. And then here's the last one of the 7 deadly signs you're being approached with solution speak.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, we got to make this sale.
Mm,
All right. So
gotta
this is
make
what I call the run-in, right?
the
The revenue
run.
run-in. It's like, hey, we got to make this sale. Can you So have you heard those before?
I have heard that one before. I'm gonna give that one on the intensity of pain somewhere up in the higher reaches of a 9 because you are gonna make somebody upset when you tell them no.
Right.
And frequency was all of the time as well. Like it's an 8 or a 9. Like it's up there. That one happened all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is, like you said, like, think about the survey occasionally, but the context is hit or miss. So
Hmm.
I want to get into the next slide here, maybe with a quick narrative here. So
Yeah.
one of the things I teach is, first of all, recognize what solution speak is. And as soon as you recognize it, you need to start working on reframing this. So one of the lessons we can learn about reframing is, first, remember, just like Tim Levitt said, people don't want a quarter-inch drill bit. Okay, so there's this famous statement. Imagine you and I are walking into the Home Depot or some other hardware store, unless we're one of those very unique people who actually collect drill bits for whatever reasons. Most of us walk in like, hey, they're not buying their quarter-inch drill bit. In fact, the way Levitt describes it, and you've probably heard it, people don't want a quarter-inch drill. What do they want?
Quarter-inch hole.
Right. And I went, so here's where I say I agree and both disagree. Yes, Levitt is not wrong, but here, let me tell you the story this way. And I used to teach this to my product managers. When they walk in with a quarter-inch drill, don't ask them if they want titanium or stainless steel. All right. Have a question like, hey, so okay, so sounds to me like you're trying to tell me what type of surface you might be drilling this into. Let's maybe
Mhm.
they say concrete. Maybe they say what? Oh, you're doing some furniture. You're doing some woodwork. Actually, I want to run some wire. Oh, tell me where you want to run the wire through. I actually got this big wooden headboard in our master bedroom, and I want to get one of those little bullet lights. Tell me, the little bullet lights are, yeah, I saw those at a hotel I was at. And you see, this thing is, I can't fall asleep at night really easy and I don't want to take meds. So I read technical journals, put me out just like that. Oh, well, really? Tell me about these technical journals here. Well, I read these things here and I got a whole dusty full of shells of them, so I got to get a new one each time. Okay, cool, cool. And I'm sitting there asking the question then, all right, so we want to drill the hole. We want to put a bullet light. Are there other places you need this bullet light that you possibly, I mean, for example, I would imagine on the airplane, they'd be a little bit upset if I wanted to, or, hotel, if I wanted to, well, I actually saw it at the hotel, but yeah, I visit my brother's house and he doesn't have it. And I go on business and sometimes they don't have the light there. Oh, okay. Other times you're reading in the dark. Yeah. I mean, when I don't feel well, whatever. Well, rather than drilling a hole here, wouldn't you want to consider a backlit Kindle?
Ah.
Yeah, because now you see, because they wanted the red button, and I sat there and said, "God," and I just kept getting into it, literally drilling into the drilling problem here to find out. Okay, the underlying problem was their insomnia, number one, and the job to be done. So the pain they were dealing with was the insomnia. The job to be done was I want to read technical manuals because they put me out. All right. They knocked me out,
Mm,
but I can't read the same manual over and over again. So, we need to figure it is the five whys, but I hate the way we are taught the five whys. Currently,
mm,
the way we are currently taught the five whys is, well, why do you want to do this? Why do you want? And that is so egregious because we are actually asking the customer to do the work for us. Why do you want this feature? Why do you want that? That's not their job. Our job is to get them to tell us their story. So I agree it's the five whys, but you need to ask the five whys in a way that gets them to tell their story.
mm.
So we'll talk about in a few minutes here. Why don't we go to the next slide here
Yep.
as we talk about responding here? So again, you want to approach it, you want to get clarification. You want to listen and empathize what's in it for them. Don't listen it to think what you're going to say next. Listen to hear what they're talking about. Your goal here is to gather enough information so you can walk a mile in their shoes
Hmm.
to gain their trust, to be able to tell their story to your stakeholders and their engineering team here. And a lot of times it's like, well, let me read this back to you, like with the story with the backlit Kindle and the drill bit here. So tell me, I think I heard you say you read these books to put you asleep. Are they the same books? No, they all have to be different. Are there other situations? Again, I'm asking them to tell me their story here. So I'm asking for a clarification. And as I ask for the clarifications, so instead of the five whys, maybe we should reframe it as the five clarifications.
Ah, I like that. The five
Yeah.
clarifications.
So,
All right.
collaborate on that. So let's talk about exploring those clarifications. Let's talk about that as we go down this path here. Let's go ahead
We've
and
got
I
our
think
next poll.
we got our next poll. Let's do the poll.
Yeah, how comfortable are you exploring the problem path?
Yeah, and while people are answering this there, because yeah, I think I've got some examples here. See what we get here. Some
Mhm.
people are very comfortable, some are not. Some are, yeah, we're getting a good mix here.
Yeah, we were getting a
Somewhat.
good mix. We've got some responses rolling in
Yep.
still. Let's take just another 5 seconds. So if you haven't responded, feel free to add your response now. All right, I'll go ahead and end it there and share the results. All right, we have another winner, somewhat comfortable. I ask some
Yeah.
questions, but don't always go too deep.
Right. I mean, for example, when I was used to interview people for my product teams, I would bring up the drill bit question. Said, imagine you're working at well, I'd ask them if they wanted titanium or stainless steel. Okay, good enough. But I don't necessarily want to bring you in there, because what I really wanted you to do is at least ask what type of surface, what type
Hmm.
of job. I wanted you to get them to tell you what type, as you explore this jungle, get into their journey of what type of problem they were trying to solve. So I think we go to the next slide here. We can talk about What do we mean by getting into that problem path here? And it's like, again, figure out who has the problem and what is the outcome they're trying to seek. Trying to fall asleep at night without meds. All right. What are some of the other problems? Bright lights keep my spouse awake. All right. I'm not always in a situation where I have a bullet light. So again, you keep thinking about it. And I noticed that in my questioning and that I narrowed the focus. Right. But I didn't ask him how painful it was. Probably I could have said, well, what happens if you don't? But it's quite obvious if you don't get sleep, especially on a business trip, you may not be good the next day. How often does this happen? Is there anyone else experiencing this problem? So again, we narrow the focus down there. We
Mm.
zero it in because we're trying to get to the underlying problem. What problem, what is the pain point they're trying to deal with? Or what is the thing they're trying to gain? And what job are they trying to get done here? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know
And
if you have
Dean,
any, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I love that kind of zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, because that allows me to more thoroughly explore the problem space. I
Right.
can maybe identify some insights that I would have left behind otherwise, helping me validate more than anything, is this problem worth solving? Is it worth my time, energy, and effort? And that
Mhm.
kind of layered approach, I'll call it, will help guide you towards a high impact solution, like a solution that a customer is really going to want, and find valuable in the end. So,
Right. I mean, I think, and there's lots of questions we can ask to lead people, and we got a couple of examples here. Um, I think what I want to do is talk about, I have a actually good example of this. And the example actually comes from my paternal grandmother, Yaya Maria. Right.
mm,
So I want to talk about Yaya Maria, and then maybe we'll answer. Let's see. Do I want to answer the Q&A questions, or do we want to? Let's see here. Let's do our Yaya Maria story, and then we'll answer these questions here. So okay, so grew up in a family of Greek immigrants, uh, and my Yaya Maria lived in New York City, and they would send me there for a Yaya Maria camp every summer. Basically, this is where my parents could dump me and my two brothers off to with my grandmother for a couple weeks while they took a nice vacation, and then she got a chance to spoil us. So here we are in the car from D.C. to New York, and my parents are talking about cousin Stephanie, one of his cousins, and apparently Stephanie's having some sort of problem at work. And my mother's, asking questions about it. And my father finally says, don't worry, my mother can tell the future. She'll get it straightened out for Stephanie. Now I'm 10 years old. I'm sitting on the right hand side. My head just whips around as I'm looking from the window, going, wait, yeah, I can tell the future. You think about it, 10 years. So we get there. We've been there for a couple of days. I'm like, yeah, you can tell the future. And I was like, how do you do it? And of course, young, she looks at me being this family matriarch. One day you'll learn, my dear. And that's all she says. A couple of days pass. I come bouncing down the stairs for breakfast. My brothers were slugs. They were sleeping in late. Put on your jacket. We're going around to the corner to the bakery. This is in Flushing, Queens, and it has this great Greek bakery around the corner. I know I'm getting a cookie out of this that my brothers aren't getting. And so as we get around the corner, we get to the bakery, and I'm happy as a clam there. And oh, there's cousin Stephanie. All right. And of course, a lot of, people, hugging and kissing, as you would imagine a big fat Greek family doing. And as they do that, we sit down and they have a little pastry with those little demi-tasse cups of Turkish coffee. And I'm, of course, have a little glass of milk on that. And so Yaya says, hey, I hear you have some problems at work here. Stephanie starts talking about it. Oh, Yaya's just like, how often does this happen? Oh, it happens every week and this and that. Oh, I said, how angry does that make you? I mean, does it make you want to throw something angry or just like, oh, it makes my blood boil here. I want to do, oh, okay. Uh, so when this happens, what do you do to deal with it? I mean, she didn't ask it those exact questions, but those are the type of questions she's asking. And then Stephanie says, oh, I go take a walk. I go out and, do this. I go do that. Anybody else you work with go, oh yeah, I got other people that's, they're probably dealing with a boss type problem, and it's like, do you feel like this is going to risk your job? Oh, yeah, blah, and so my Yaya asked about 4 or 5 questions just like that around, How often does this happen? How painful is it? How are you currently getting around this?
Hmm.
Do other people see this, or is it just happening to you? What happens if we don't take care of this here? What is, have you thought about, another job, or some other way around this here? Now, here's the thing. At the end of this 20-minute of my yaya asking 10-second questions and getting back 15-minute responses, well, 5-minute responses, she goes, "Let me tell you your future, my dear." And she picks up Stephanie's Demitas cup, looks at the grounds, and says, "Let me tell you your future." What do you suppose Yaya Maria did?
She did an empathy interview.
She did an empathy interview. She did a read back on the empathy interview. And she
Yeah.
goes, "I see you doing this." So she basically couched her advice after doing the empathy interview. And, she's quickly sitting there and what do you call it, lining it up here and saying, "Well, I think, here's how I think I might address this." But the point was, that's how people thought she could tell the future. All she did was she knew, here was this, Greek immigrant with no schooling at all, who was just doing classic product management empathy interviews.
Empathy interviews.
And she got the reputation for being able to tell people's future. So I mean, right? So it was just a matter of getting another person to tell those stories.
Tell a
And so
story.
here's my thing. And so here's the thing. A lot of places when we teach interviews with customers, we tell people, "Oh, create a script. Write up 5 questions you're going to ask." Now, as someone who's lived and died by scripts in the past, from my performance career in the past, this is what I observed from technical product managers who have written a script. They're clinging to the script, and it doesn't matter how the other person responds, they are going to get through those 5
That's right.
questions. And you
Yeah.
can see the flop sweat as they sit there because they're not social people, right? I mean, they started out in
Uh,
engineering. And
yeah.
then you get the other scenario. What don't you like about our product? Immediately they go into a support call stance.
Right.
Don't do that. Get people to tell you their stories about what they're feeling and what they're trying to get done. All right. So
Mhm.
that's why it's like, don't use the scripts. Don't, I mean, have some lead off, but just think about questions like, how often does it happen? How painful is it here? All right.
That's it.
There it is. Get them to tell your story. Get them to help define it and shape something. Get them. And so that is a better way of doing this than
Yeah.
sitting there and creating this script of questions to ask you.
Oh, I gotta tell you, the best magic trick I ever found for doing an empathy interview, Dean, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So you don't have to prepare a script because the person you are interviewing is preparing your script for you as you
Oh,
talk
I
to them.
like that. Oh, I love that. I love hearing
Yeah.
that. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So as I was doing these, literally, you would repeat back what they said to you, and they give
Right.
you more every time. It's like waving a magic wand. It was fantastic.
Right. So we got a couple questions here I think I want
Yep.
to answer here. So the first one's from George, says, "What happens when you explore the problem and the
Mhm.
customer realizes you can't help them? Information changes a viewpoint here." I think part of this is in these conversations we're talking about right now, we are talking about, we actually want to tell you, don't dive into the solution right away. In other words, I know this sounds a bit evasive, but first of all, you know, don't respond with solution. I mean, because that is a sure way they're going to say, like, they don't have, what I want. So what I would suggest is before, as you have these conversations, and get to it, understand everyone's got a pain point. It could be the fact that and when usually when I see a situation that you can't help them, it's because you have a solution in seek of a market or a customer, as
Mhm.
opposed to we have, we're trying to help people get things done. I mean, look at Productside, we are trying to help transform organizations and individual lives. Okay.
Mhm.
So, then it gets down to a question of, all right, tell us what you're trying to get done out of this. If it's at an individual level, how you're trying to promote your career, if you're at an organizational level, how am I trying to get my team to level up? So again, usually when I see this question here makes me think, and George apologized, but when I read this, I'm thinking like, okay, are we throwing out solutions too soon? Are we trying to jam that square peg in the round hole versus, as getting into that level of empathy interview. I don't know. What are your thoughts there, Ryan?
Yeah, so with this one, it's making me think of something, George. I want to help you. And as I think about it, that seems like a very specific type of conversation where you are trying to sell something. The customer has a specific request, you're trying to push a deal forward or something like that is happening. And in those cases, I would say there's actually, if they're realizing, wait, hold on a minute, they don't have the right thing in their portfolio for me, but that's not always a bad thing, because you know what strategy is, and I know this isn't a webinar about strategy, it's focus. If we can find the things that no, this but at the same time, I'm always encouraging of the customer to, I'm
Yeah.
just here to learn from you. I want to know more, whether you think I can solve for it or not, because I want to create value for you.
Right.
Yep.
And to your point, and I think that gets to George's second question here as well, here is and also we don't assume that the customer is invested and has decide on the solution here. Again, there's a few things as product managers here where even though we'd like to sell something here, our biggest and I would disagree with you just a little bit, Ryan. I think these are strategic conversations. I think solution
Yeah.
speak is generally tactical,
Yes.
and it's our job to get, yeah. And I think once I phrase that, you see where I'm going with this. It's like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like we need to keep reframing this into the strategic. And we do that. So again, I think, success for me isn't always the fact that I sold something here. The fact is that they understood that there are product managers in our organization who want to hear your story, who want to address your pains here. This may be a longer play. So again, I want to make sure that we understand that, you know, in this conversation, we're usually talking when someone's coming to us with a solution in mind, and we're trying to get that reframed down to the problem space so we can create value for them and other people as well. And that happens through the curiosity we need to have. All right.
Absolutely.
You want to do Vinay's question
Yeah,
here, or do we want to?
Vinay, I'm going to ask just a little bit of patience from you. We're going to talk about another couple techniques, because I think the information we share there relates well to how I would like to answer your question. So,
Perfect. Let's go to the next slide.
all right, let's do it. So this came up already, Dean. What do you know?
Yep.
The five whys.
Yeah. 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 But here's my warning about this.
Yeah.
Don't ever say, why do you need this feature?
No. Yeah.
Don't ever say, how do you think, tell me, don't ever ask these questions this way. In other words, ask them, in more creative ways. I think, I got some ways to say that here. I'll just put those in the chat here, right?
Yeah,
Different
yeah.
ways you
Dean,
can,
that's a good call out, because our example here is calling it out that way. We did that for
right.
brevity, but there are great ways to ask for and uncover things. In fact, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what would you have done instead if this
Right.
didn't
Oh,
exist? Yeah,
what are you doing to get around it now? I
right,
mean, when I was at Seven Lakes, oh, we have to compete with, Q2 or what a Quantum, or these two competitors we had. And as I'm looking and I'm talking to more people saying, well, I found out my biggest competitor at that particular company was not Q2 or Quantum. It was Microsoft Excel.
right.
And once I realized that, then that changed everything for us there. So
That's
again,
it.
and I did just put in the chat here the question. Sorry, I didn't bullet point them here. And so
That,
these are just ways that, and again, George is asking why are these different than scripts here? Again, oh, share them with
oh
everyone
yeah,
here.
Dean, you just
Okay.
shared it with the host.
Okay, all right. Let me try to share this again here.
So Dean, I'm going to let you focus for 1 second, and we talked about
Okay.
the five whys already. That comes from the Kaizen continuous improvement method. And what I'm saying is we can learn from that approach as product people to kind of start the conversation, maintain that curiosity that Dean and I are talking about here, and try to dig deeper to find the underlying problem, because it's helping us avoid those superficial fixes by looking for the root cause. And this approach can lead us potentially to things that solve real problems and provide value to the customer in the end, is what we want.
All right. So there we go. I put the notes there and basically said, do not treat these as a script. Treat these questions I'm putting in chat as a framework for how you want to conduct your conversation here. And so
Yep.
the idea here is to listen for those opportunities. It's
Absolutely.
like,
I think that's great advice, Dean.
yeah. And
Uh,
look, you've got some right here. You're at, look at that intensity, frequency. I think we had that when we started off our little game, didn't we?
so Dean, you were talking about it with your Yaya Maria story as well
Right.
as at the beginning, because look at this, it steeps into our very being as product people. But I think as you prepare your any analysis or you're trying to synthesize information, and Vinay, when we address your question about qualitative versus quantitative, we should always be asking ourselves these questions of how acutely is this pain felt? Can I look at that? Even if we're doing qualitative interviews, feedback, we can quantify that. Ask. I would ask people
Yeah.
straight up on a scale of 1 to 5, how painful is it?
Yeah. And doesn't hurt to do your data homework ahead of time either. When I was at a
Absolutely not.
primo, we would
Yeah.
have that situation where it's like, hey, we're going to be collecting some data. We're going to loop back in a week to see, where
Mhm.
we're at with this. And just say, look, you told us, I did this with the chief marketing officer at a very, 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 very large US institution. And they were adamant that the people on their team worked a certain way. And we were just, launching a little, what do you call it? An exclusive, little beta use it, for just, we were using them as one of our early adopters. And so we said, look, we're going to roll this out to about 4 of your people here and get some feedback, but we want to measure. So then in the next week, when we talked about their workflow and how they were trying to get things done, it was very surprising to everybody what we had assumed was not exactly, what was happening. So by holding this follow-up empathy conversation, about frequency intensity. We did have data. And, Vinay, to your point, it never hurts to walk in the door with stats. All right.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it can be data about the customer. It could be data about an adjacent type of field. So have the quantitative data there, because it
Yeah.
does add flavor and context to the conversation. And by the way, if they want to give you quantitative data, I would never turn that down.
Holy smokes, yeah. And Vinay, what I'd like to address specifically for you is remember earlier we talked about that broad to narrow and broad to narrow. I would say when we're exploring broadly, oftentimes we need a very high context style of data collection in interview, qualitative. It's a little more qualitative often in the earlier stages. As we narrow, we're getting validation and proof points and these other things
Right.
in the quantitative as we narrow. But we can use quantitative and qualitative, like blending those two practices, both for broad and narrow. It's just what level of context do I need here? Is it high context or low context to help me answer and validate the questions I
Right.
have?
And by the way, Muhammad has an interesting point here in the comments. He put
Hmm.
in, what is bothering you that you think this feature helps you with? I would desperately want you to reframe that, because here's the problem. As soon as you bring the word feature or product into the conversation, it stops being an empathy interview and them telling you their story. And you now be getting into a support stance where all you're doing is becoming, that feature taker. And it's like, and the conversation's moving away then from solving problems and getting into solutions. So, I might reframe that, Muhammad, and say, like, what's bothering you that you feel like you don't have any help with?
And Dean, I'm going to even phrase that a little bit differently,
Good. Go for it.
where by insinuating this sounds troublesome, you're
Yep.
injecting a little bit of bias there. I just say, hey, tell me about the last time you did this thing. How did it go? And then you're listening for those emotionally charged moments and saying, ooh, that sounded frustrating. Tell me more. Like, let's get into it.
Yep. I agree there. I agree
Mhm.
there. So again, just understand, we have these conversations. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to get to solutions. I think we're eventually going to get to solutions, don't you, Ryan?
What do you know?
Voila. It was almost as if we scripted this. All right, let's talk about, okay. Once you understand the problem and can articulate it, all right, then you can move on to the solution here. So one of the very, very simple, easy to use, And underappreciated tools is the framing the problem. I call that, there's two different elevator speeches that I want you to be able to give. One is, what problem are you solving? The other one is, where are we going to play? Where are we going to win? So
Mhm.
basically that's, so one is the positioning statement. We're familiar with that. We're not going to go into that, but this is one I feel is underutilized here. I can actually, and I've taken engineering teams through similar conversations like this. I've taken stakeholders on journeys like this. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody else. Let's say you've done 5 or 6 empathy interviews here, right? So, and you've done some affinity mapping. Maybe you've taken these steps. You've done the interviews. You got the personas. You've done the interviews. You've done the interviews. You affinity map it using the customer circle of the pains, gains, job to be done canvas. Now you've got that, and you're saying, all right, let's speak to this person here. Describe, I am. So, situation out of real life, a clinical trial, what do you call it? A clinical trial facilitator who is trying to match patients at our doctor's practice to clinical trials that could save their lives. But I'm constantly being beset by other higher priority things. I don't have the time, and the solution I have right now makes it very, very hard. Right. And so then we sit there and say, because, so there's the because. And so which makes me feel frustrated because I can't take care of the customers I love. Just
Mhm.
understanding that person's problem, that, you know, understanding, Ginny's problem when she's trying to steer match that is a very powerful statement there. So, and it's not hard to do. And I think, Ryan, the next step after framing the problem, I think you do this better than I do. Talk about how might we.
Yeah. So as we frame that problem and understand who has the problem and why it's painful, how intense and frequent, and all those things, we need to keep that problem front of mind, not just go fall in love with a solution. So, how might we question can help us stay focused on that problem. It encourages us to have some imagination and creativity in how we go about solving it. So they invite
Right.
ourselves and to collaborate and co-create solutions that and they even find diverse options to
Right.
address that problem.
How might we
So
help Ginny match her patients here? How might we help Ginny save more time?
exactly.
How might we help, and we
Mhm.
frame it that way. By the way, in that particular case, we actually found a better solution than what was being proposed to us.
Wow. So that's wonderful because these are very actionable things. By using a how might we statement, you can be very specific yet broad enough to allow creativity and keep the team focused on the problem. That's how well they work. And Dean, I've
So,
got a gift for everybody here. I want to
yeah,
talk.
I was about to say, I think we got some tools to
Yeah.
help people frame these conversations because we want you to frame these conversations, not parrot them, not script them, but frame them. So here are some conversational centerpieces.
So everybody, we showed you the problem framing template that we have at Productside. We have our playbook, but we have something for all of you. For free, we're going to share with you our problem framing template from the playbook. So be on the lookout for where to download this after this webinar. We're going to make that available to all of you at no charge at all. That is something you can leverage and use to better articulate problems as you're hearing them in real time. I am trying to, but because which makes me feel it works
Yeah.
really, really well.
You put these up on a whiteboard, you can sketch them up there, you can
Mhm.
just sit there and put them on a mural board here, and just have the conversations with people, the right people in the room, and just again, not so much as a script, but just as a conversation starter or as a conversational centerpiece.
Absolutely. And Dean, I'd like to, as we look at wrapping up here,
Right.
we need to pick a solution. It's not, the problem is certainly very important, but we have
Right.
to make progress towards that solution.
Yep.
And I particularly like using product market fit as a guide in doing this.
Yep.
So what opinions do you have on picking a solution?
So for example, I like the fact that we do, is there an appetite, is it valuable? Or what I like to put, is there an appetite?
Hmm.
Okay. Is it viable? Is this the business our company is in? I've had more than one situation where I've had come in as head of product, say, why are we building that? That's not the business we're in. All right. Is it feasible? Nothing is worse than getting a solution out that you can't scale.
Mm.
It's like, that's a good problem to have, but only if you solve that problem. So those are the type of things that we want to address. And I also want to put a twist on it, this, Ryan, is
Yeah,
that are we going to deliver something that is so delightful to use, so different than the other solutions they have, and so margin enhancing for for the customer, that they in turn reward us with their business.
I love that. Yep, that they in turn reward us because I think product market fit is really valuable here, no pun
Yeah.
intended, valuable, to ensure that our resources are finite as business people.
Yeah.
And we need to direct those resources towards the things that have the most impact for those users, as well as being strategically beneficial for our business. And these questions aim us at that.
Yeah. As product managers, we live in a world of limited resources. As product managers, we live in a world of unlimited opportunities, offset by a world of limited, what do you call it, resources.
Limited resources. I like that. Unlimited
Unlimited
opportunities,
opportunities,
limited
limited
resources.
resources. All
Yeah.
right, so let's get some key takeaways and let's get these people, succeeding on this.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about it. No presentation, Dean, on problems would be complete without the Albert Einstein quote. If I had
Yep.
an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the
Yes,
solution.
please do that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of internalize that for a second because true value lies, as we know, in the discipline of problem discovery. The best solutions come from clear, well-explored understanding of a problem. And this is the mindset that separates good product managers from great ones, in my opinion, if we can adopt kind of this curiosity that we've been expressing to explore and uncover those underlying problems. And as we look at the things I'd love for you to walk away with from our conversation today is that you got to make some difficult choices. So
Yeah,
let's look at that problem solution path that's in front of us and take the difficult path sometimes. We want
yeah,
lasting impact and user value created at every opportunity. We need to make sure we are exploring deeply. While sometimes it feels like, my plate's already full, but no, that is where real product work is done by using things like the problem framing template, engaging with your users, seeing the future like Yaya Maria did,
yep.
and uncovering those things is really,
And
really, really where you,
finding out why they want that quarter-inch drill bit.
that's it. So that's where you will add value back to your organizations and the customers that you serve. And then finally, let's frame it. We have to very simply and quickly articulate the problems that we uncover. We need our stakeholders to understand them. And that template helps us
Yep.
define who and why behind all the problems that we find. And that,
Do not skip that last step. I've seen too many people who've done
yep,
too great a research, only to get fumbled because they start fumbling on, well, what problem are you solving? And it's like and they wind up going, a 5 minute conversation on all the features and all the technology, and then there's the sponsoring stakeholder going like, I don't want to invest in that.
that's right. So everybody, now I want to kind of to open it up to you, remind you that feel free to ask us. We don't have any open questions in our Q&A anymore, but in the last few minutes, we'd welcome any more. If you have them, you can put them there. But I have just a few things I'd like to wrap up on just to cover with all of you. One, thank you for joining Dean and I today. It's been such a pleasure to have you. We got a few special offers that we'd love for you to be aware of. The first one I've already mentioned is our problem framing template. You can, we will send you a copy of that, or if you want to download it right now, you can scan the QR code and get access to it immediately.
Woo.
So go check it out. We've got another webinar coming up on November the 20th. This one is the art of product management. You're going to be product Picassos by the end of your session with Dean and I's friends and colleagues, Roger Snyder and Rena Alexin. So if you're interested in that webinar, please do again scan the code. We'd love to see you back with us at that event. And we do, as always, as a training and consulting organization, have lots of opportunities to upskill people. And that comes through the courses that we teach. We've got our optimal product management live online course happening very soon here. That's as soon as next week with Kenny. Dean, I believe you have some engagements coming up on our AI product management course. And then we've also got digital product management happening as well as optimal product management through the end of the
Right.
year.
Right. Actually, I think that AI course is being moved to January, so there's time to sign up.
Hey, look at that. And don't forget, while you're here, you can get 10% off on all of your courses by using the promo code Outcomes10 off. You will get 10% off all of your
There you
courses if
go.
you choose to take them with us, which we would love to have you. And with that, let's see, did we get any questions, Dean?
I don't know. We don't have any questions yet here. So, but like I said, I do think, maybe while we're looking for questions here, maybe we have a story or some questions we might want to offer here.
Ooh, Dean, sounds like you have one in mind.
Well, like I say again, so one of my favorite things is when someone comes running and says, "I need you to stop what you're doing and put this in for a sale or for whatever reason here." And
Yeah.
generally, I didn't learn this until too late in my career. They say, "Hey, I'm glad to argue this. I'm glad to be with you on this. I'll set up a meeting with the sponsoring stakeholders and you can explain why we need to pause their work." So, in
Mm,
other words, when they come running with a solution and they won't tolerate listening to the problem space and all they want is that red button, is saying, all right, then you are the advocate for this. I don't want to speak ex cathedra for you. I'll be in that room holding your hand with you, but you need to explain this to the other sponsors, who've already got things on roadmap,
yeah.
why we need to park other opportunities.
Dean, I've got a question that I think this is a tough one. We didn't quite dig into it deeply, but we might over the last few minutes be able to. How do you know how much research is enough to know you have found a problem?
Yeah, first of all, perfection is the enemy of delivered, and
There you go.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes we overdo it. So, for example, there's data that says once you get past about, some say it's 6 people, some say it's 8 people, but once you've got past 8 people, all if unless you're trying to build data for your machine learning model here, that is enough for you to get the right signals here. I think I had a situation with a data scientist saying, "Hey, does our data, can support this?" And they were like, "Well, if you give me 2 weeks, I can give you 100% answer." And I'm like, "Well, how much time do you need for 80% answer?" "Oh, I can get you that in 2 days." I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
so again, what's just enough signal to look, I'm not trying to make one of four decisions here. Do I pursue the course of action? Do I pivot a bit? Do I need to park when I'm on here and get more data, or do I need just to punt on this and get onto something more valuable?
Absolutely. And I think I love the 80% rule. I I am a type A overachiever, so I want 100%, but I had to
Yep.
learn I couldn't get it. Like there's no such thing as 100%.
As product
Yeah,
managers, we have to live in limpid pools of ambiguity.
that's right.
Imagine doing this backstroke and I'm spitting water out of the mouth. We swim. So you've got to learn how to swim in those pools of ambiguity, because that's going to happen when people come up to you with solutions. It gets very confusing, especially when someone high powered comes running in saying, "Stop what you're doing and do this for the
Mm,
product."
absolutely. All right, Dean, I think that just about does it for our time. All of you, again, I so much appreciate your attendance here today. Please feel free to connect with Productside on LinkedIn, as well as connect with Dean and I. We'd love to have you as a connection, to see
Yes.
the cool stuff that we do. But otherwise, have a great day, everybody. We
Yeah. The week's
appreciated
half
your
over.
attendance.
Week's half over, folks. Go enjoy it there. All right. Great session. Thanks. Oh, cool. We're getting some nice comments here.
Yeah,
All right. I think that's going to be a wrap.
yeah, that is a wrap. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.